Good morning and welcome to the Daily Reset. Yesterday we asked a very important question. What is driving you? What is driving you? Not what you would want to drive you, not what you hope would drive you, not what your desire would drive you. What is actually driving you? We ran a short experiment where I asked you to look at your most important goals and just select 5 of them. We say those goals are not random. They have fuel behind them. They have fuel driving you to set them. Once you identify the goals and begin searching for what drives each one of them, it becomes very revealing because your goals are not random. Then I gave you this Bible verse from Proverbs 4:23. And I find it so profound, particularly the fact that the word diligence is used. And if you go to the roots of the word diligence, the actual word in the original language that is translated to diligence, it means you literally wake up in the morning with a slasher and you walk around the compound of your heart, slashing everything that does not belong. Diligence. Diligence was the strongest attribute of a sentinel. And a sentinel will be someone who stands on a high point to watch and guard a compound. When soldiers are on sentinel duty, it's called the diligence duty. In other words, there is no break, really watching. So today we will use an acronym, and that is HEART. H-E-A-R-T. I want to give you these components of HEART, and then we can have a conversation and do some practical work that will be a continuation from yesterday. HEART, H-E-A-R-T. I want you to skip H. E stands for essence of what governs a person. The essence of what governs a person. That's E. A stands for the authority from which life is interpreted. The authority from which life is interpreted. R stands for the root system beneath every behavior. Root system beneath every behavior. And T stands for truth center from which life flows. Truth center from which life flows. Now we go back to H. I grew up in the village. In the village, you don't have jiko. You have amiga. The English equivalent of amiga is hearth with a TH. Hearth. And the difference between a jiko and hearth is that fire can stay alive in the hearth, in the amiga, in that hole, in the kitchen, for days. I remember for many weeks in the household I grew up in, we never had to light the fire in the hearth, in the amiga. You just had to remove the ash. You always found the embers. You found those pieces, hot pieces hidden in there. And even when you didn't find the red ones, you couldn't use your hand to scoop the hearth. Why? Because the hearth is a container of energy. So the definition of hearth is, H is hearth of inner life. Hearth of inner life. And this is inner fuel, inner fire, inner energy, life flow. Those of you who grew up with, the modern gas system, you may not understand because all you did was and you see the flame up. But some of us, that kitchen had a small plate made of metal like this that stayed by the hearth, because when you want to scoop the ash, you can't use your hand. Why? Because the hearth was always hot. It was a container that was always hot whenever you're coming. Even if sometimes you brought wet wood and you just put it over the amaiga and it will start drying. Not because you've lit a fire, but because that spot was always at minimum warm. But more often than not, it was hot. It is a hearth, a container. And so, the next time you tell someone that I XX whatever XX with all my heart, this is what you are saying. With all my heart. With all the hearth of my inner life, my inner fire, my inner energy, with the essence of what governs me, with the authority from which I interpret life, from the root system beneath each of my behaviors, from the truth center from which my life flows. When I ask you the question, what is driving your goals, we are searching for your heart. We are searching for your heart. Where is your heart? When we pray, search my heart, O God, I'm asking God to search for the center from which my life flows. What is the authority from which I interpret my life experiences? The inner center from where that energy comes. Because unfortunately, we get caught up deriving our energy from external sources, where the new year becomes a source of energy. Now I'm ready to change my life finally, based on something external. My crew have started going to the gym. I cannot be left behind. Boop. There I am. I sign up for the gym. Paying for the gym membership becomes a more faithful relationship between me and the gym than me going to the gym to work out. The payment is always on time. I am always late, if I show up at all. When we source the driver of our most important goals, the driver of our most important decisions externally, we give up our heart. We give up the hearth, the container of our inner life, inner fuel, inner fire, or inner energy. We give up the essence of what governs us. We give up the authority from which we interpret our life. We give up the root system beneath our behavior. We give up the center from which our life flows. The question is, in the House of Mastery, before I go to that specific question, in the House of Mastery, my work is primarily anchored on the 6 layers of being. I believe the more progress I personally make in beginning to operate deeper in the level of belief and identity, the more personal freedom I get. And one of the biggest changes in my life is the ease with which, if I pick up a new goal, I pick it up as an experiment and I let it go intentionally, where I can create a timeline. By 2 months from today, this goal will be either approved and fully in, or it's out. And it is a very new kind of relationship that has been just extremely revealing. My work is anchored on the 6 layers. The outermost layer is environment. The second layer is behavior. The question I asked you yesterday, the question of your driver, is at the level of behavior. The question of your driver is at the level of behavior. Behind behavior, there is capability. And I believe the most powerful capability anyone would have is emotional sovereignty. In other words, the ability to experience the full range of emotion without collapsing to either pleasure or excitement or pain. And being able to experience both with a level of detachment, because you are not coming to your capacity from behavior, you're coming from deeper, such that this is an external layer. Environment is the most external, followed by behavior. That is where action, this is what people see. But beneath that, just like an iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is the behavior, the body of the iceberg is your capability. But behind capability, there is beliefs. Beliefs is, what is your interpretation of what's real and what's not real? What's your interpretation of what's true? And here the word is interpretation. What is your interpretation of what is worthwhile and what is not? What is the interpretation of what is permanent and what is temporary? What's the interpretation of what is ultimate? Because how you define what is important and what's not, what's worth and what is not, project how you are going to be driven. You will be driven towards what you think is important. But at the point you're being driven, the driver has already been subconsciously selected. So when you ask yourself the question at behavior level, what drives me to set these goals, you are indirectly searching for, what do I believe is true? What do I believe is valuable? What do I believe is worthwhile? And yet, the deepest connection between your driver, your fuel, and you is at the identity level, which lies deeper than your beliefs. Environment, behavior, capability, beliefs, then the next layer in is your identity. Your identity determines what drivers will belong, what drivers won't belong. If you are a gas cooker, firewood is useless to you. Charcoal is useless to you. If you are a diesel engine, petrol is useless to you. If you are an electric cooker, the best petrol will be useless to you. The identity determines what the fuel is going to be. So that sometimes when I use, for example, comparison or competition to try to get myself to take action to be consistent, I am probably taking a diesel engine and feeding it with electricity. Or taking a Tesla and I'm giving it petrol. It doesn't even have a tank for petrol. But then beyond identity, there is the source. The source. So let's say you are not at the level of behavior, you are somewhere in between. Maybe you are at the level of identity or beliefs or capability. The question is, from which end are you drawing your fuel? Are you drawing your fuel from the source, from deep within, or are you getting your fuel from outside? And outside in this case will probably be environment or behavior. Because if I'm driven by behavior, I will drive what other people drive. I will wear what they wear. I will live where they live. I will speak how they speak. I will show up where they show up. I will eat what they eat. I will wake up when they wake up. In other words, I can easily surrender this year. And if I surrender this year, that means I can surrender next year and the year after. Before I know it, it's 10 years. 10 years of starting the year with almost the same goals. Every single year I'm showing up. Essentially, I have the same goals. I am driven by something that I did not choose. Because I'm driven by something that I did not choose, I have no control of how much of that fuel I am going to have. I want you to ask yourself this question. Is my source deep enough and reliable enough that it never runs out? The source of my fuel, the source of my driver, is it deep enough and vast enough, reliable enough that it never runs out? If I start going to the gym at the beginning of January because my group is going to the gym, what is going to happen to most of this group by the end of February? Today is March 25th. The first week of January, the gym was full. The gym I go to here was full. You literally had to stand, especially in certain areas, you had to stand and wait to have your chance at the machine. I was in the gym today and I'm seated in this machine, 3 machines this way, 3 machines this way, empty. The gym account is full because people subscribed in January and that is a reliable relationship. The money comes on time. Catching, because canceling feels like giving up on yourself and you're not ready to give up on yourself. You give up coming to the gym because the source of your driver was not reliable. The source of your driver was not yours. Would you say, when you looked at your goals yesterday, based on what we are saying today, would you say that more of your driver is from deep within or from the level of behavior, the environment, or maybe capability? Where I set goals, because I can speak French, I set goals to record a poem in French. That's I can become caught up at these external levels at the expense of what lies deeper. How can I operate more? How can I shift more to connect more to the hearth of my inner life? The hearth, that container of my fire, my energy, my vitality, because that's inexhaustible. The essence of what governs my life as a person, so that it's no longer dependent on the environment. I'm searching for it deep within. The authority from which my life, I interpret my experiences, I decide what's valuable, what is worthwhile, what is enduring, what belongs and what doesn't belong. The root system for my most important behaviors, my most important patterns, my most important habits. And of course, the truth center from which my life flows. Guard your heart with all due diligence. I would like you to read that verse again and just like allow it to speak to you and find the core for yourself. Guard. That's the first word. Guard. Guard. All. Not some diligence. Not enough diligence. All. And due. You're essentially paying. It's not an option. You owe it to yourself to search. With all due diligence. Diligence is one of the most expensive words in the English language, I believe. Because diligence is more than determination. Diligence is more than discipline. Diligence is the willingness to start again. To guard, fail, start again. Guard, fail, start again. Guard, fail, start again. Guard, fail, start again. Diligence is to run short of fuel and refill. Short, refill. Run out, refill. Run out, refill. But you have to know where you are refilling from. You have to know what the fuel is. And refill with the right fuel. I want you to go back to the goals that you wrote yesterday. Let's do one more inquiry. Let's do one more inquiry, and I'm going to give you a very simple framework that you will apply now, just based on what we've spoken about today. The goal is what you want. The goal is what you want. The why behind the goal is what you think the goal will give you. The why is what you think the goal will give you, and it's about what it will give you experientially, emotionally. It's not an intellectual thing. What it will give you experientially. And then behind that why is now the fuel or driver. The fuel or driver. And this is what gives you movement, sustainable movement, enduring movement, movement you can control. It comes from the fuel. That fuel must be contained in a tank, and the tank is your identity. The tank is your identity. Sometimes you run out of fuel because you are operating with such a small tank. It's not enough for the journey that you need to travel. Such that redefining who you are based on the truth so that you expand the capacity of the tank is the beginning. Your capacity has never, your capability, when I talk about capacity, capacity involves all the layers. Capability is very specific. Your capability has never been a problem. You haven't even expressed a tenth of your capability. Just the mere fact that you speak English. In Africa, you are a high achiever. If you can spell the word congratulations without misspelling it, you are already a high achiever. If you can use AI, you are part of less than 13% of the entire world. Maybe in your extended family, you're probably among the 3 people who can use AI. Your capability has never been a problem. The fuel lies behind your why. The fuel is contained by, you have a container, the tank is your identity. Maybe releasing the brakes which constrain your identity is maybe where most of the work needs to go. Because if we can increase, because you always want what you, if you look at most of your goals, you always want what you think you can achieve. Most goals, you want what you think you can achieve. Many times you are actually constraining constricting yourself to what you think you can achieve subconsciously because you have a tank and you perceive that tank, your identity, you perceive it from a limited perspective, until we can begin to expand the identity by aligning it to what the source says. What does the source say I am? Because the source is the well. The source is the well. The world right now is fighting, I believe they're fighting over oil. And it's because somebody has oil wells. Your source is a well. The question is, are you drawing your driver from the well, or are you drawing it from a gas station that belongs to someone else? Because there's a well within. Guard your heart with all due diligence. For from it flow, the issues of life. I believe the issues of life, this is about that fuel. The fuel that shows up consistently to power me when I pursue what I was created here to pursue. This is the last thing that I will say, and then we will close this part. And I would like you to write this down. My identity, beliefs, and capabilities are either an expression of God or an expression of my environment. My identity, capabilities, beliefs, and capabilities are either an expression of God, which means they are flowing from the source, from deep within, outward, or an expression of my environment, which means they are flowing from outward in. And that will be the most important lens to examine your goals with. So my assignment to you this morning, spend time before you leave to look through your goals. Revisit the goals. The first question is, are these truly my most important goals? My top 5 most important goals for this year? That's number 1. Number 2, consider the why. The goal is what you want. The why is what you believe it will give you emotionally. What will you feel? What will your life be? You have to boil it down to the emotional experience of it. And if you do it, you will realize the majority of your goals come down to the same emotion. And the driver is that the fuel, the driver is that specific thing that gives you emotion. And the driver, it comes down to an emotion. It's either inspiration or desire or excitement or commitment, willingness. It comes down to an emotion that you can feel, you can locate. And then, of course, your identity. The identity, the question, it's, maybe write this one, maybe write it this other way, that my identity is, if identity is expressed the way God designed it, identity is an expression of God's intent for my life. My identity is an expression of God's intent for my life. In other words, my identity becomes a personalization of God's intent for my life. And so when you're pursuing this goal and you think about identity, the question is, who are you being in pursuit of that goal? Who are you showing up as? And then, of course, the source. And when you think about the source, I want you to think about the source as the source of your truth, your voice, and your power. Your truth, your voice, and your power as you set this goal. Is this goal a true expression of your truth, your voice, your power? Or is it somebody else's truth, somebody else's voice, somebody else's power? My identity, my beliefs, my capabilities are either an expression of God or an expression of the environment. I have no doubt about how weighty and heavy this material is and this kind of sessions. But in this, until we cross over into the new season of the Daily Reset, we are getting a diploma in in an intentional way of approaching this year, because I know, I look at some of you, the way you show up. We'll just fundraise to our organized introductions so that we have a cake so that you last year can meet you in December 2026. That is, I know that from the depth of my heart that things are going to fall away. Things are going to fall away. Even when you show up for this meeting, you walk out and you feel like nothing happened. You are beginning to smell like the Daily Reset. You can't avoid it. You're beginning to smell like the Daily Reset. So somebody asks you what you're wearing, just say it's Dior. It's Dior. It's a French cologne. It's Dior. It's Dior. Actually, there is Dior, so it's Dior. It's Daily Reset. Even when you don't feel, even if right now, I'm not accusing anyone, even if right now you might be listening to the Daily Reset and you're lying down, you're still going to smell like the Daily Reset. Because you are awake and you are logged in. That's not accidental. And you paid to be here. Right now, some people would pay not to wake up for the next hour, but you paid and then you showed up. So even when I'm firm, I'm like, turn on your video. I do not skip all these things. I just know how special a family you are. Just you show up here, you see the other person. Trust me, it's in 10 years, I have 2 albums. I look at this album and I look at the album right now, and I'm like, the externals, that whatever I can experience externally is nothing compared to that internal experience. And that is the journey you are on. I can't wait to see where it leads you.